Hi, I'm Professor Richert, and I am going to share with you two amazing models that really help illustrate organizational culture. So when you think about organizational culture, you have as a definition that set of values, beliefs, and behaviors that shape and form in an organization. Right? And so you could think of it as the personality of an organization. It's really what's driving people's behavior. And if you look into it, it may be, people might describe it as, oh, that is how we do things here. So if you're trying to figure out how things are done in an organization, maybe you're brand new, you might say, and how do we do things here, right? And that'll give you some clues about organizational culture. So one of the interesting things about organizational culture, let's say you were the leader, brand new leader of this organization, and you were hired specifically because you wanted to help with the work-life balance. Maybe folks felt like it was off, and that was something they hired you to do, right? So you might approach things like, oh, okay, so let me just do some things and get the work-life balance fixed here. But what's interesting about culture is you can think about it as an iceberg, right? When you think about an iceberg, only 10% of the iceberg is visible. 90% is under the water and very likely to crash your ship if you're not thinking about it, right? So what do I mean by that? What is visible up above the waterline is things like your physical location, right? Your organization, how people dress. You might be able to observe some people's behavior. You might look at posted policies. Maybe if you are that kind of an organization, the mission statement is actually up on the walls and visible to everybody as they go through their lives, right? So those are the things that you could just walk in as a brand new leader and be able to see, okay? But what trips you up is often the stuff that's underneath the waterline, right? These are the unwritten rules that are guiding people's behavior. It's attitudes. What attitudes do people have about work? What beliefs do they have about what's important and what makes things work here? What kind of traditions does the organization have, right? What core values does the organization really keep at the center of people's actions? And ultimately, almost at an unconscious level, what do people hold as their worldview about what's important and key? Okay, so let's say you are this leader, you were hired to do work-life balance, right? You say, great, I am going to put in a new policy and it is going to be that we all get summer Fridays off, okay? And what you notice is actually people aren't taking the summer Fridays. They keep scheduling important meetings during that time. People keep doing all of the work, right? And they almost seem more resentful instead of less resentful during the summer, okay? Maybe you are up against some invisible things like people's attitudes and their beliefs and their values about what's happening. Maybe they know that in this culture, how we do things here is we work really, really hard, long hours, and that's who gets promoted. That's who gets status, and that's who people listen to, right? So they're not going to take that Friday off and miss that key meeting. So in order to really understand your organization, you have to dive in and really get a sense of what's there. So that's one of the models I think is super helpful. Another model is thinking about it as a tree. So if I asked you to draw a tree, you might draw me something like that, right? But what's interesting about trees is they have found that trees are almost as large underneath as they are up top, right? So let's say this tree represents you as the leader of this organization, and you are coming from the culture of your previous organization, and it and its assumptions and values about the world. So this is kind of the behavior, and then these are those attitudes, values, and beliefs, right? Well, let's say you are in a meeting and you are talking to, maybe you're actually announcing that Summer Pride Day's policy, right? And you are talking to people about it. And what's interesting is folks are looking kind of blank about it, right? In this new corporate culture that you are a part of, they are maybe not even meeting your eyes. There's like sort of no conversation when you do this, right? So you are going to use your beliefs about the fact that if people really cared about that, they might chime right in and they might get involved, right? And that's how they did things in your old company, right? And actually, they, even though their behavior is something that you are able to see, you don't understand that down below, they're worried about sharing some information with you that goes contrary to your thoughts about this, right? They know that how we do things here is we have offline conversations about the difficult things, right? And so you are getting entirely the wrong impression. Maybe they don't care that much about Summer Fridays based on their behavior, right? But meanwhile, if you understood their values, attitudes, and beliefs about things, you might have a totally different perception of their behavior. Okay, so being able to have a good sense as a leader, what is really driving my people? And how do I uncover that? Because yes, this is the invisible part, but what's interesting about it is when you start getting down to the level of values, this is often unconscious or subconscious, certainly not discussed unless some crazy leader comes in and starts doing things totally different, and then it might become more clear. So how do you go about finding out? Guess what? Ask, right? And when you ask, actually deeply listen, all right? By which I mean, pay attention to both what is said and what is not said. Have really deep conversations with folks about what are the traditions here? What kind of attitudes might be shaping people's interest in this or concerns about this, right? And as you create a culture of safety, that worldview is going to come clearer to you, and you're going to be able to not just put policies in place, but actually shape people's values and adjust people's real deep set things about how they can get ahead and how they can be successful. Two super interesting models for understanding organizational culture, so important to your success. Okay. Take a look, everybody. Good asking.